edition of This Week in Review, the show in which we give you the rundown of goings on in the entertainment industry. We know that you're busy, so we try to give you the rundown of the things that are going on. Of course, I'm never alone in talking about some of these said topics. We're not going to talk about a whole bunch today, but still want to dive in. And of course, I want to welcome Spillman onto the show.
What's up,
My
ladies
fellow
and
co-host.
gentlemen? How's it going? I hope that you're not as rainy as we are here in the northeastern mid-Atlantic
Yeah,
seaboard. We
man.
got
I'm just trying to
a
stay dry.
hurricane.
Those of you that are in
Yeah,
the nation's capital, you know that we have a really gray, rainy day today.
yeah.
So,
Put those galoshes on, everybody.
put those those chores and those things that you've been putting off in the house to good use and take care of it today, because you more than likely you're not going to be able to do any outdoor activities today. So.
It's the prime laundry day for sure.
So, with that said, man, as I said, it's not going to be a whole bunch that we're going to dive into, but there's I feel like it's still important to touch on. And that first we'll dive into some things within sports, and then also one of the major things that, of course, that unless you've been living under a rock, that are happening with TV and film. So, on a sports end, the two things that I wanted to get into, one was what happened, what transpired with. I guess we had a high school coach, high school girls basketball coach, who was suspended a couple of games for allowing the score to get a little out of hand. Spillman, can you tell us again what was that score that we had between
The
those two teams?
score was
Can you
100.
reiterate?
It was 161-2. I feel like the two is why he got suspended because to me, what is this? What is this two you got here? We saw who you was playing. You let him score two on y'all. Two, two. No, sir. Sure, it might have been a free throw. You can't block the free throws, but no, sir. We expect excellence from our athletes. I like to see these kind of games. I feel like people are like, oh, it's so bad. If it was so bad, why did they put that team out there? That team that scored two, knew them girls didn't need to be out there. They should have fielded the team that year. And it builds character. How do you feel about it, Brandon?
So a couple of things. One, we were given a based off of the story that this isn't something that is like a misnomer, like something that is like rare with this team. Apparently, they've been beating many of the teams that they had by huge a huge discrepancy of points. Like by I understand, like I think if I recall the story, that I think there was one team that was beaten by like 50 plus points or 70 plus points. They've done that to
Let's
more.
go.
I was saying they've done it to more than one team, so it's not like crazy. But at the same time, like while I understand why the idea behind having the coach what is it be suspended, I feel like it's the responsibility of everybody, not just the coach, but even the officials that are there at the game, where like based off of the score at halftime, the game should have been called, like point blank period. It should have been called, like because I think they
I
they
disagree
they
with that.
they
I
talk about in
disagree
the
with
story.
that wholeheartedly. Wholeheartedly.
But here's the thing though, like I get where you're coming from, where like if it's I can understand both sides of it. I'll put it that way. Because if we're talking about one side of it, if we're talking about like the team that scored the 2 points, then we still have to provide the dignity there that if you're playing against a team of that caliber, then you're expected, regardless of what the results are, to be able to deal with the results of what it is. Similar thing where a lot of times we have volunteer awards, or not volunteer, participation awards. So, um, but at the same time too, I look at it as the same way we have within another sport. If we're talking about like boxing, or if we're talking about MFA, mixed martial arts, where you're not going to allow the other competitor to like beat the other person to a pulp, to in essence. So they
Ladies
have
and
to call it
gentlemen,
at one point.
ladies and gentlemen, Brandon just compared a JV girls basketball game to a blood sport. He just compared it to a blood sport. I understand in the blood sport, it's like, hey, we don't want this guy to die. Please stop hitting him. He's not defending himself. That's one thing. We talk about basketball. You can't die on no basketball just because somebody whoop 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 lay up. That's not.
I understand.
I
I understand.
disagree. I disagree.
Okay.
Also, you know,
Like I said, I
let's say
understand
let's
both
say
sides of it because
let's say
by
you could
go
set
ahead.
a record like that. Wouldn't you like do you have any records that you have that you would like to stay up there? Like you say, oh man, we outscored a team by 70 one time. That record will stand for how many years? We can come back our 50th reunion. We put on all our little sports jackets and smile about the time that we whooped up on somebody like that. I feel like, taking in people's accountability, they should have had accountability and self-esteem to practice and not let something like that happen to them. Kobe Bryant famously had a girls team with his daughter that got whooped like that. And then 2 years later, they came back and won the championship in that same tournament. So I feel like stuff like this, it builds character. This is the thing that's beautiful about sports, and this is what we talk about all the time with building character with children. It's a level of accountability. The girls that let that team hold them to 2 points were not accountable to themselves. They weren't playing ball like they should have. They weren't practicing. They weren't doing the suicides and none of that. If you only scored 2 points, that means that you are highly deficient. Like there's other teams that scored a couple of points. The margin was a lot lower because you got to play the game. I feel like if you want to score 2 points, that's on you and your team. I don't feel like that we punishing people for being excellent, but then we tell people why would you strive to be the best? If you striving to be the best and be the best athlete you could be and focused in as a team, that's a goal that we should set. I feel like we are really selling people short. I said this before we got on the air. If you cut my 161 game to two short, I may lose a chance on a historic night that will go down in history. That might be an all-time girls win. You look at there's so many people in high school that scored hundreds of points, and it was a sign that they used to go on to greater things. Lisa Leslie scored 100 points in high school. Cheryl Miller scored 100 points in high school. Dwan Wagner scored 100 points in high school. Lots of people scored tons and tons of points. We don't say anything. We don't say, oh, the Raptors should have quit in the second half when Kobe put 81 up on them. So what's the difference? I really can't tell the difference. If you can't stop me from scoring, that's on you. That's not on me. I'm not going to quit or get you out of it so that you can have a turn at having dignity for yourself. Have some dignity for yourself. Do the push-ups and then suicides and that off-season work, and maybe this won't happen to you next time.
As I said, I understand both sides of it because if we're talking about, hey, like if we're talking about the team that scored the 2 points, I understand what you're saying, where you're coming from, but I'm saying even from another perspective too, there's an expectation, there's a level of competition that you are playing to, when you're going up against a given team, and it comes with the territory. If you're playing with it against a team of that caliber, the expectation is that you're going to be able to play up to that team's caliber as well. And whatever
I don't
happens,
agree with that. I don't agree with that. I
really.
disagree with that. I feel like the expectation, like let's say the expectation of girls JV
Well,
basketball,
no,
or I think
I
this is
think we're
JV or
saying the same
varsity.
thing. I think we're saying the same thing, just in a different way. I guess what I'm coming
Mm-hmm.
from is that you're doing a disservice to the team that's scoring the 2 points by saying that they're not at the level or capable of playing potentially at the level of the other team that beat them by that much. That's what I mean.
I
So
feel like the outcome verified that's what the outcome is for. It's like y'all
yeah.
should have been in this gym. Y'all should work on some things, but
But my other argument on the
it's
other end, is this, because I know you were saying it's too extreme to compare it to
boxing
mixed
and
martial
MMA. That's
arts or
different.
boxing.
Even football, I
But
understand it on
but but I
football.
but
It's like, hey,
I
somebody can get hurt out
but
there.
I'll argue this. Because if we're even talking about professional sports, and as a professional athlete, there's an expectation of your capabilities and ability to play the sport, and you have blowouts that happen there. You have situations with that too, where you have major blowouts, and it's considered, unsportsmanlike to, be able to continue to blow up the score. Because I found the only reason why I'm bringing that up is, I'm thinking back of those championship years with Golden State, and I'm trying to recall what year it was where I guess one of the rookies, it was, I think they were up like 30 or 40. This was back when Kevin Durant was playing with the team, and they were going off the break, and like one of the players like threw it off the backboard, did a self pass to themselves, and they got taken out of the game because it was considered, like unsportsmanlike to do, all that unnecessary like stuff. So I understand both
That's
sides of
Warriors
it.
basketball, ladies and gentlemen. That's Warriors basketball. Lakers would never do something stupid like that.
Oh no,
We
no, but
Lakers
I'm
fans
saying
would be
I'm
like,
going towards your
let's see
argument.
it. Did he
I'm
did
going
he make
towards
the
your
dunk? Or
argument.
if he missed the dunk, you get out the game. Did he make the dunk?
Yeah, he made it.
See, I would have did that. See, that's the difference
He
between
made
your
it.
organization and my organization. We we celebrate excellence over here in the purple and gold. We don't know about those people that can't decide which of those two cities they're from. We don't know about those people. But the Lakers, if you throw it through your legs and or throw it off the glass and we want to see that. We want to see you do those things that we pay you millions of dollars to do. I don't care if you're number 15. We want everybody to say, hey, even 15 got game with him. Y'all can't mess with us. We're sorry. Y'all got to work better. This our year. I can't take that lay down mentality. Because I've been on the end, I've handed out some whoopings and I've gotten whoopings. And it makes you better. When you given the whoopings, you don't work so hard. When you get a whooping, you go out of work. You're like, man, I got work. Mm, work on it. That's what makes you good. Think about it. A girl break your heart. She tell you you got to work on some things. What you do? You don't go. You go work on them. You get yourself better. If you can't, you have to have evaluation. We can't always be worried about people's feelings, quote unquote. They knew what the possibility was when they signed up for girls basketball. You don't want to get whooped by 158 points,
But I say, like,
then
what is there to gain?
please,
What is there to gain though? Like it was already, already pretty
character.
much over ahead time. What's there to
Character.
gain? Nothing.
Them girls gonna be talking about that whooping for the rest of their lives. My brother and his team played. My brother played in the collegiate league here in DC. He played for Carroll. They played Gonzaga one time, and they had a future MLB player on the team. My brother's friend always tells me he saw that dude 3 times in an inning once. Can you imagine that? 3 times in an inning. They went through the whole rotation 3 times. I feel like like that builds character. They started working on the game. They said, "Hey man, we can't deal with this no more. I can't come up here. Coach can't come up here. None of us. The bus driver can't drive us around to get embarrassed like this. We gotta check ourselves. Just like when you go to the store with your mama, you embarrass your mama. Everybody sees it. Then you gotta go and searching yourself. Why am I embarrassing my mama? What am I doing wrong? Maybe I am crazy. I haven't been listening to her. I need to start listening. This is what we're trying to teach the children, ladies and gentlemen. And this is why we got soft America now. We not thugs. Why we can't win no wars. We can't keep an economy going. None of that. Because we letting people lose and we say, oh, they can't do as good. But we can't hear you, Brandon. So I'm gonna keep going because I'm the one that has the volume now. And the Lakers are number one. I just want everyone to know that the Lakers are the number one franchise. We have lots of championships, Hall of Fame players, all-time scorers, all-time rebounders, all of those things. But Brandon, you gotta fix your camera. Can we hear Brandon, ladies and gentlemen? Can you hear us?
Oh
Can
yeah,
you
I'm
get a
still
check,
here.
check, 1, 2? Okay, there we go.
Yeah,
Now
I'm
we
still
can
here.
hear you. That's better. You were muted
I was
for a
muted.
second, ladies and gentlemen. You were muted. But back to it. I just, again, if you could die, I understand the mercy rule. That is if you can die. If we doing a race and I've lapped you 3 times, that's not on me. That's not on me. And it's not even like I understand if we were saying these are different levels of people. Like, we got a JV girls team playing against professionals. That doesn't make sense. Why are we doing that? But these are all 16 to 14 to 17-year-old girls. They're all high school girls. If you find some high school girls that can whoop up on some other high school girls, it just is what it is. Maybe the school will put some more emphasis on it and get a better team out there. Maybe they'll focus on practice and looking at tape. That's you got to build yourself up and you have to evaluate yourself. So if you get a whooping like that, you just gotta get yourself the Mamba. Kobe Bryant used that to build up that Mamba Academy. That's what he said. We're gonna do the Mamba Academy. So to me, it builds character, and I just feel like if you lose like that, you just gotta take care of yourself, especially if you're professional. If you lose like that in the pros, I have no words for you because you were doing the push-ups allegedly. Mm-mm. Ladies and gentlemen, that's enough.
As I
I've
said, I
ranted a little
understand both
bit.
arguments. I will leave it at that. I understand both. So,
I just feel like
but
that
that is
Kobe
not
meme.
all we have. That's not all we want
Soft,
to talk about.
soft. That's
That's
a
not all
feeling.
we're going to talk
Soft.
about with sports. So the other tail end of that is the news with Dwight Howard of uh, not not signing with the Warriors. As we well know, with the Warriors, they've had some other signings, and or I should say extensions, if you will, with some of their core players, core franchise players. However, one sticking point, and I mean I'm going to be objective about this. Warriors are my team, but they need size. They're small, so and having Howard on there, it would have added, some much needed size. But at the same time, too, I could kind of see how like it didn't really finalize because if we're, being really blunt, like, yeah, Howard is still playing professionally, but in comparison to, players back in the NBA versus overseas, he hasn't really demonstrated, an ability to be able to at least in these last couple of seasons, prior to coming to what is it, playing overseas, he hasn't really demonstrated the ability to really hold his own as much as he used to, which is a shame because, at one point, early in his career, he was a very much, a franchise player. And you can't really say I feel like you can't really say that as much these days at this point of his career, especially now that we have a lot of big men that are very versatile, that have guard skills, and he doesn't really have that. He's like the the big men of old that have a post up game and can jump out of the gym, and that he doesn't even really have as much anymore. So what are your thoughts on them not being able to finalize this deal and that still that need to be able to add some size to that roster?
Well, to me, I feel as though Dwight is an all-time great big man, and I think that y'all do need some size because that was apparent last year when you got taken up out of the paint by the Lakers, ladies and gentlemen. We said take them out by the shed, take them out of there. So you guys need some size. It's very apparent. I think that Dwight is good. He'd have to be your backup. So I understand. I saw that the Warriors are trying to keep their roster spots open to see who shakes free or what have you. Um, you know, I imagine at any point they could call Dwight, be like, "Hey, Dwight, do you want to come?" He'd be like, "All right, I'm there." He seems to keep in good shape. He's gotten past a lot of the shenanigans of the past, but I do think that adding Dwight to a team with Chris Paul would be a bit much. I feel like it's a bit much. They played together in Houston, didn't they? Or he got traded for him.
I want to say yes,
I
but
think they
but I
played
mean,
together for like 1 year or something.
yeah, it was. I want to say if it was really
But
brief, if I
it was
recall.
really brief. But I just feel like you can only add so many veterans because there is that you know, but the injury thing is amazing. We don't know, it's always up in the air who's going to get hurt, but it's more likely that older players are going to get hurt. That's just the reality of the game. That's why we, you know, always are getting in younger guys because they have not been hurt. So, you just worry about Dwight's health. He's been maintaining in Taiwan and everything, so I guess that's okay. But y'all need some size though, because you could not handle us last year inside, and that's how we beat y'all. Like it wasn't that you know you just didn't have the size. Like it was clear that when we got to the Nuggets, their size bothered us, and I feel like the NBA is slowly going back to the big man game a little bit more as big men has become a little bit more refined in their games and more
Versatile,
skilled, as you would say,
versatile. Yeah,
versatile, skilled. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. So I just see, I think you're trying to find James Wiseman, who you traded, and you probably shouldn't have traded him, but he
But
really
I mean,
wasn't fitting
I
with
get that
y'all.
part of it too because
Yeah,
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 he
he
provided
wasn't
size,
fitting.
but
You're gonna
he,
have to pay him a
schedule
bunch of money.
wise, I'm saying schedule
Yeah.
wise in terms of where I feel our team was picturing where he was supposed to be or where they wanted him to be in terms of his development. He didn't reach that, and then on top of that too, is providing limitation based on how much he's being paid also. So, add to, the monetary component of what you're paying for him for a salary on top of, value. Not to say that he's not capable of being a player. It's just, capable of being, a good player in the NBA. I still feel that way. It's just that he wasn't. I feel like he wasn't developing as quickly as they anticipated he would. And so, if we're still trying to win right now with the core guys that we have now and the era that we have now, because let's be honest, if we're talking about the core group of guys, that are from, the era dynasty, if you will, with what is it, Steph and Clay and Draymond, you know, we're talking about, I'd give it maybe one, and if I'm being 1 year, and if I'm being really, generous, maybe 2 years. Like I'm not even giving it 3 years in terms of what's left of what they can, accomplish, in that time. I still feel that they can win at least one more title, but I feel like that window is really small. And so because of that small window, a lot of the players that, you may have patience for in their development, over a course of maybe 4 or 5 years, you may not have patience for, may move to get someone who can help you win right now. So
Yeah. I just, I just, I think Dwight also. I think he's redeemed himself. When he was with us in the bubble, he definitely led us to a championship with his defensive prowess. You guys could use that,
but
but I
see,
think
that's the thing.
having
That would be
Chris
his.
Paul and him and Chris Paul in the same lineup, maybe it could have worked. But I feel like if Dwight had the springs he had in 2020 still, maybe it could work because Dwight was still slamming things on people, but he doesn't really have that anymore.
And see, that's what I'm about to say. If I'm talking about pros and cons, pros, I would say one thing that really stifled our team last year was kind of like the dynamic in the locker room, which is why they had to get rid of, what's his name, who's now in the Wizards. I'm brain farting. They just gave a contract to. He's going to
Jordan,
Jordan, thank you. Which is
Jordan
why they had to
Poole.
which is why they had to get rid of, him from the team. Not to say that he's not a great player and a star on the rise, but it was messing up the dynamic in the locker room. So like they had to, get rid of that piece. I feel like Dwight would bring a good energy into the locker room, as someone who's kind of been there and done that as a veteran, and he'd be helpful for, the other players that are there on the team. However, if we're a lot of times when we have players that were huge offensive forces maybe earlier in their career, their way of being able to still stay relevant in the league is by still having a decent defensive game. If they can't provide you with impact offensively, you're hoping that they can still provide you impact defensively. And like you said, the motor that he had when he helped you guys win that championship a couple of years ago in the bubble, I don't feel like he still has
Hmm.
that same motor. Like he's still in shape because he's still, playing professionally right now, but I don't feel like he has that motor that he had a couple of years ago. And so if we're talking about that, is it worth the risk of having him on the team if he's not only going to be an offensive liability because he's not going to provide you any impact offensively, but he's also going to be a detriment to you defensively too, where like he's going to be a target for any of the big men that we have in the league, like because I know that that's what they have in the back of their head. If we're talking about any of like those elite teams that are like those top three teams, whether we're talking about in the West or the East, about the big men that he ideally would be guarding. If we're talking about Embiid, or if we're talking about our MVP, we're talking about I can't believe I'm brain farting his name, Jokic.
Joker.
Um, yeah, Jokic. If we're talking about any of those players, can we ideally see that he would be able to guard them? In my opinion, no. So, like, is it really worth? Yeah, he has size, but do are we picturing that he would be able to give either of those players that I just named trouble? And that's just two players. Like, I haven't even gone down the list of other players that he potentially would be guarding that are not those top three, top four big men that we have in the league. So yeah, hopefully we're able to get some more additions, with the roster that we have. I know there are some limitations based on how much money we're paying forth with all with those extensions. So we have our hands tied a little bit, but hopefully there are some players that are out there that are willing to take a pay cut, just based off of the what is it, the pedigree that has been established with the Warriors, where they're willing to do that, because we see that sometimes. A lot of times, you'll have players that have been in the league, and because they are trying to go after that championship, they're willing to take that pay cut or take a different role in order to join a team that's capable of getting there.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely know that. As a Lakers fan, we definitely like
Yes,
those
I'm sure you do.
mid-level
I'm sure you
veteran
do.
exceptions.
I'm sure you do.
But yeah, I just y'all need some size
We do. We
because
do. And I'll
y'all was looking
objectively
like
admit
that
that.
number
Like, we
two
do.
team. Y'all was looking at that like 2 point team in the playoffs when y'all played us. Y'all played a good first round, but y'all needed some size.
Yeah.
But honestly, where are you going to find the size to deal with the Jokers of the world? Because he's unstoppable. You can't stop that boy. Um, Anthony Davis, I felt like Anthony Davis was the defensive player of the year last year. He showed it in the playoffs. He was the defensive standout in the playoffs, and Joker made him look like he was not trying. Anthony Davis had a 4 block game, and we lost by like 15, 20 points. Normally, that don't happen. If somebody blocked 4 shots, usually he's out there putting things down and regulating in the paint, and it doesn't matter. And that's the other thing too. Jokers and those kind of players would
But
draw
see that
Dwight
skill
out of
set
the
though,
paint.
not only
Yeah,
shooting,
draw
not
him out the
only
paint.
rebounding, passing, you know, very underrated passer. Like, people, talk
Yeah.
about his passing, but like in terms of his impact on the game with his passes, it's right up there with, some of the best guards in the league. So But that's going to wrap up at least the sports section of what we want to discuss. The other component with TV and film deals with the WGA. Of course, with the WGA, they have been meeting with executives to finalize a deal. And of course, I bring this up because we also have our actors on strike too. So hopefully, I'm picturing in the event of them being able to come to an agreement with this deal that they have, from what I understand, the last 3 days, based on a story out of Hollywood Reporter. They're still in the process of doing, finalizing that. They've made some progress, but they still haven't officially reached a deal. That once they are able to do so, it'll be a domino effect with SAG after. But you read the story, Spillman. What are your thoughts on where things stand, and that finally after all of this time, we're seeing some developments or progress.
Well, I think that honestly, the strikes are. I think that they will get what they want ultimately because I think that the unions that do have the power to strike have been striking recently, not just the Screen Actors and Writers Actors Guild, but the auto workers and even the UPS guys, because the UPS guys, they got that bag. But I just think that they are that they create the product of production, and they do what they're supposed to. So I think that they'll ultimately get their money. That they're shaking them down. I know that they're already seeing revenue loss, and there's only so long you could lose revenue like that. Like there's so many scripted shows and like daily shows that need writers that have just haven't been on, and the people that are striking are losing money. But if I was at that level where I'm a shareholder or I'm a C suite person, that's millions of dollars that I'm losing in my bonus, because those are not, you cannot, there is no at the end of the year, oh well, we were striking, so this part of the year doesn't count for towards my bonus, because it will. They're going to lose money behind it for sure. But they just, I think that they need to pay the people that make the product. I feel like that there's been so many games at the top that the people that are like, all of us think that if you're an animator in Hollywood, you must be making pretty good money. You must be living pretty good, because you make something that millions and billions of people see every year. Like, if you are like, you imagine if I'm the animator on Black Panther, there are billions and billions of dollars in just that franchise alone. So if I'm doing that kind of work, I should be making much more money, and get a bigger slice of that pie, because without my animating skills, there is no Black Panther. Without my writing skills, there is no Black Panther. It's just an idea. That we got to take care of the people that do all the things that they do, and we just need to move forward and help each other, because ultimately it's hurting the product. So everybody's going to lose money in the end, because people are habit forming. If that show doesn't come on, because I know I stopped watching a bunch of shows the last time they had a writer strike, because I was like, who cares about these shows? These shows, I was coming every Tuesday on a schedule. Y'all broke the schedule. I found something else to do with my Tuesday. It unfortunately works like that. Viewers are fickle, just that easy. So they're playing with their money, and it's kind of sad to see. But I don't
So
know.
I'll say a couple of things. Some of it'll kind of be a recap of what you just shared just now, and I'll start first by saying, good on the unions, was WGA, or as I said, more than likely what'll happen, fingers crossed, once this gets resolved, what will transpire with SAG and after, of really sticking to your guns, and uh really ensuring the value of the artists that play such a huge role, whether we're talking about the writers, or the performers themselves, that you know, play such a big role in the projects that we know and love. And then, as I said, there are other artists that are a part of that process too, because when we're talking about film and TV, it's a collaborative process. But it still helps to set a precedent too, with other artists, as well, even though they may not explicitly be striking right now. It also sets a precedent of really, putting the executives on notice of what is expected of being able to share in those profits. So, um, I really do believe that probably with the executives there was a feeling that it wouldn't carry on as long as it did. That the whether it was the WGA or well, I'll just say with the WGA, and then even with SAG after, that they would just cave, and that didn't happen. So as I said, good on both organizations of really sticking to their guns of ensuring that they were able to reach a deal and ensure that they were able to share a lot in those profits that are so obviously so large with executives, and really ensuring that's happening. So, and talking further about that, I guess the only other part of that is, if we're talking about the studios as well, or I should say, what was I going to say? If we're talking about the components that we have with uh, SAG or AFTRA, hopefully, we're able to come to a resolution in that regard. So that way, it also allows some of the other artists that have, been, waiting, in that time, and kind of been at a stalemate in terms of them being able to make a living, that they're able to move forward. So, did you have any other thoughts?
No, I just think, pay the people we want to watch our shows. We will come back, and you'll get your advertisers back, but stop being so greedy. Like, your house, your $1 million house isn't that good if you can't stay in it. I mean, no one else can have houses, or you can't suppress other people to make money. I understand people got to make the money that they make, but these people deserve a cut too, and stop trying to short the people, because eventually those kind of tactics and behavior leak into the business as a whole. And as things go along, you get situations like certain sports organizations that were recently sold here in the nation's capital. When you have someone who's being real stingy with the money, and making certain decisions on some things, but then you don't see it on the other things, eventually you lose your fan base, and then you'll have to sell. So, just make
I was
sure
going to
you
say the
take
other
care of
part
it.
of that I realized that I did want to add with that, and I was trying to recall what it was, is the idea of how much money that is being lost. You touched on it a moment ago. Even under normal circumstances, when we're talking about a film or television show, that's thousands upon millions of dollars that's being spent per minute, per day. And that's, if they aren't able to hit, those things that need to be done that certain day, and they're, running behind on schedule, that's money that was spent, that they are continuing to shelve for, and pay for. And then if we're picturing that even a step further, there were productions that completely came to a halt, you know productions that were already going and already had the train going, so to speak, and now they're at a complete standstill of resources that you've already invested with these said projects. I mean, one thing that I'm thinking of, like, right off my head right now, of one project would be Deadpool 3. Like, considering how big, from what I understand, Deadpool 3 is going to be, with all these cameos and all these characters that are supposed to pop up, and now it has to come to a complete standstill because of the strike. Just to give it as an example, that's so much money that you're hemorrhaging because of the circumstances of having that come to a halt. And
Hmm.
even now, knock on wood, that you're able to come to a resolution, you're still at a disadvantage, because now you're going to be in a disadvantage with the very artists that are involved in the production, because they were under the in their contracts, the idea was that they would be done by a certain time. What if they already been had planned something else by that time, or already had something else set up? Now you're paying an additional fee to ensure that you can still have them finish all those things that they would have already had done. So
Yeah,
it's just, issues upon issues upon issues upon issues upon issues that could have already
yeah,
been, resolved and settled. So, as I said, good on WGA, SAG after, of really sticking to what their intentions were, of being able to ensure that the artists that they represent are able to get a piece of those profits. And hopefully this will act as like a lesson for the executives of you know being able to include the very people that create these IPs for you and these projects for you, being able to involve them in that profit share of what you earn for a lot of these things that you make billions upon billions, billions with a B, billions upon billions of dollars. So
and that's just on the movie itself. We're not talking about the all important merchandising,
exactly.
cross pollination, advertising dollars. All that stuff is big money. So I'm sure we talk about the box office, but I'm sure they sell billions of cans of Coca-Cola or whatever it is for all these properties. So it is what it is.
It is what it is. So that's going to wrap up, this edition of This Week in Review. Again, as always, I want to thank Spillman for joining me on this episode. Spills, can you tell folks where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram, Truly Spill. On Instagram, we've got lots of things going on there that are fantastic. We're getting closer to the opening of the NBA season, as we said, and the Lakers are looking pretty good. We were in the conference finals last year, so let's see what we can do. Let's try to build on this team that we put together with glue and tape at the end of last year. So maybe the whole year these boys and we'll get a championship. Let's pray. Go ahead, Brandon.
For sure. And I'm your again co-host, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me at Brandon Troy ENT on X, and Brandon Troy ENT underscore Brandon Troy Brandon Troy underscore ENT on Instagram. I could talk today. But yeah, like we'll should be back next week. Sorry we weren't here last week. I had a con that I was in the middle of, a horror con, if you will, terror con. Had a lot of fun. The next show that will be on the docket will be New York Comic Con. So be on the lookout for that, as well as Rhode Island Comic Con. And then I may have an announcement about another con uh, in Mexico. Stay tuned. So
Oh.
stay tuned on that one. But
Say
yeah, thank you.
Wataneo, ladies and gentlemen. Say Wataneo.
So thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see you soon, guys. Peace.
5 stars. Don't forget. 5 stars. Vote us up. Upvote us. Upvote us.